as Black Americans, I already knew that we all come from different tribes and we all do not fall under the same umbrella. And after last week, I can definitely confirm that because I just attended a Sandy Ground reunion. And for those who don't know, Sandy Ground is the oldest Black settlement that still remains in the United States. And I just so happened to be a descendant of Sandy Ground. And after speaking to a few people, I saw that we all have different stories to tell. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that in this video. Sandy Ground was established in 1828, but it is rumored that it was established in like 1799, 1800, and it was established out here in Staten Island, New York, where I am from. And on the website, it says that it was founded by free African American slaves that were out here in New York, and also free African American slaves that were in Delaware and Maryland. Now, although at the reunion I did meet some people who are descendants of free African American slaves, I also heard stories of them being descendants of Cherokee. And when it comes to my family are descendants of Indigenous Americans that were here in Staten Island and also Virginia. Now, this is on my mother's father's side. Now, my mother's father's side is connected to Sandy Ground, and all I heard is Lenape, Indigenous American from Virginia, and also a little bit of Caribbean, because Caribbean people did come out here as well. The reason for me bringing this up is because as someone who is a descendant of the last oldest Black settlement out here in the United States, I find it pretty incredible. And I also found it incredible that the last remaining Black settlement is out here on the very same island that I live on. So as a representation of that, I feel like it is important to spill out the whole truth, because it wasn't just African Americans that were building these communities. There are records of it being a part of the Underground Railroad, but there are also records of it once being a Lenape village. So Sandy Ground used to be a Lenape village before the whole word itself was changed. But the fact that there are records of indigenous artifacts, settlements that are out here in the Underground Railroad, and also documents of Caribbean people coming out here, you know, it was a whole melting pot. And I feel like this was happening all over the place in America. I feel like there is a very good chance that a lot of these Black settlements that were around the U.S. were once indigenous villages, just like how Sandy Ground was once a indigenous village. But anyway, I feel like it's important to tell the whole truth, because it wasn't just African slave trade. That wasn't just one part of our history. Although there is nothing wrong coming from African slaves, there's nothing wrong with being descendants of African slaves, there were other groups that were coming out here, and of course the indigenous people that were already here. And it is important to tell the whole truth. If you know I'm making sense, because I feel like I'm rambling at this point. And with this Sandy Ground reunion, it was my first time showing up, and I'm hoping that I can bring more perspective to the table, especially with the indigenous side of things. And I've met people who also have Lenape ancestors that are from Staten Island. There's one lady that I have to get in contact with. She was explaining how she has ancestors who were Lenape from Staten Island and Ramapo Indian, which is also a part of Lenape. And I found that so interesting because my grandfather told me that we have an ancestor who was Ramapo Lenape. And hearing that from somebody else, because at first I was gonna just throw away the towel with that. Like, I did believe it, but then I don't know, I just had a hard time finding like evidence of that per se. But to hear that there are other people from Sandy Ground who have Ramapo lineage, it just opened my mind back up to possibly my ancestor being Ramapo as well. So I'm hoping to bring more of that to the table, just to show my Indian side to this Sandy Ground. I'm going to show 2 pictures of my great grandmothers who were Indian. And I wasn't going to do this at first, but I see that when you look up Sandy Ground, a lot of the descendants, they have their relatives' pictures on the website and on Google. So I'm going to show mines, and I don't know. It's a little weird because there are people on this YouTube space who talk about like Native American, like Aboriginal stuff, and I've seen that some of them will take pictures of other people's relatives and like put it up on their YouTube channel, like their videos or books, whatever it is that they do. And when people who are descendants of those ancestors come across these videos or whatever and they ask, can you take it down? They don't do it. So, I mean, it's weird online, but I'm going to show my great grandmother's hair. And yeah, so the first great grandmother of mine that I'm going to show, she is a descendant of the Lumbee tribe, Tuscarora, and also she is descendant from Indigenous Americans from Virginia, um, like I think the Powhatan tribe, Pamunkey for one. She's descended from like several tribes in that Virginia area. And yeah, you can be descended from several tribes. It's all the same thing. It's like, think of it as like this neighborhood here is called Pamunkey, and this neighborhood here is called, I don't know, but it's all the same thing, but just different names. So she's a descendant from several tribes in like Virginia, and also um the Lumbee tribe down in North Carolina. And my other ancestor, she is a descendant of the Lenape out here in Staten Island, but also Ramapo, which is like located in New Jersey. And I definitely have to do more research with that and reach out to the lady who has like documents of all this stuff. Um, and that ancestry on this particular side, I do see that a lot of my ancestors are from like upstate New York and stuff like that, and also a connection back down to Virginia. So I don't know. But yeah, and with this picture, my aunts, I've heard some of my aunts, they told me that I look like her. Um, I don't know, but I do see a little resemblance in the eyes because my eyes are really small. And in this picture that someone drew of her, her eyes look really small as well. So if that's the case, I definitely know where I got my small eyes from. So yeah, I definitely got to come back with another part to this. They do have a museum out here talking about Sandy Ground and documents of the Underground Railroad and Native American stuff, and I do want to show that, but the museum is still under like renovations right now, so it's closed. Um, yeah, but I definitely want to get back on here and share more about that old Black settlement community and show more things about like my family and stuff, just to give you guys like an idea of when it comes to genealogy and research, because it's so much that goes into this. And yeah, and one more thing, because although Sandy Ground is the oldest Black settlement still remaining, I do feel like it's hanging on a thread, because there are some people out here who do not like the fact that Sandy Ground is still around. Like, there are certain people out here who want the land, and I don't think it's fair, because out here we have like this old Dutch settlement that they have now as like tours and museums and all this stuff. And they get to have that, which is fine. But when it comes to this Black settlement, there are people who don't want it here. And I feel like our story is just as important as their story. And with evidence of like the Underground Railroad and it being a old Lenape village, I don't think it's fair for people wanting to like take that away. So there is a lot going on with that, and I do want to talk about this in upcoming videos. Don't know when, but pretty soon.